Do begin this morning with the race for the White House and the first Republican primary debate last night.
8 candidates, 8 of them, the ones who met the threshold set by the Republican National Committee, they squared off in Milwaukee. The frontrunner in the GOP field, former President Trump, decided not to take part, but he still loomed large over the debate as the candidates sparred against each other. They also had to address what was labeled the elephant not in the room. Here's a look at some of the highlights from last night.
Tonight, the race for the White House takes flight. Welcome to the first debate of the 2024 presidential campaign, live at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
Here's the thing. This election is not about January 6th of 2021. It's about January 20th of 2025, when the next president is going to take office.
We have to look at the fact that 3/4 of Americans don't want a rematch between Trump and Biden.
I had hoped that the issues surrounding the 2020 election and the controversies around January 6th had not come to this, had not come to criminal proceedings.
And when Hunter Biden fills out a fake application, a false application for a gun permit, and then is facing a 10-year mandatory minimum, which was mandated by legislation sponsored by his father, and then you have a Justice Department that walks away from those charges, we're telling people that the law doesn't apply to everybody.
Can't we all agree that we should ban late-term abortions? Can't we all agree that we should encourage adoptions? Can't we all agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them?
We're joined now by NBC's Vitali from Milwaukee and senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen. Good morning to both of you. So, Allie, let's start with you. As we mentioned a moment ago, former President Trump was not there. Instead, he took part in that pre-recorded interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. It was about an hour into the debate when the candidates were finally asked about Trump and all of those indictments. So what were some of the key takeaways from the candidates when it comes to the frontrunner and his legal issues?
Yeah, Joe, as if that weren't the question that everyone was waiting for, from viewers to the candidates themselves. But it was fascinating to watch Trump treated more as an issue to be dealt with, as opposed to an individual who's vying for this office, actively leading the pack. In my conversations in the spin room after, it was clear to everyone that he wasn't there. And many of them felt that this moment where you watched his opponents raise their hands and say that they would still support him even after indicted only further proved the former president's point that he is still the leader of this party. Nevertheless, some of those moments for you, watch.
The American people deserve to know that the president asked me in his request that I reject or return votes unilaterally, power that no vice president in American history had ever exercised or taken. He asked me to put him over the Constitution. And I chose the Constitution.
So we have to have respect for our justice system and the rule of law, and it starts at the top with the President of the United States.
And look, none of those comments were exactly surprising. And so when you look at this debate stage and wonder, did it change anything? Did any of the candidates wait for the largest audience that they would have up until this point to actually go at the former president for his multiple legal troubles? The answer is no.
So, John, before Trump even became a focal point, the first part of the debate was pretty focused on a number of other issues, non-Trump issues. What stood out to you in that?
It's a great question, Joe, and, always so hard to add and follow Vitali with a really good insight there. I think what stood out to me at the beginning of the debate, the desire of these guys to go after each other. I say guys, in part because Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina, didn't engage in quite the level of vitriol that some of the other folks did. But what you saw early on this stage was really a fight for who would emerge into second place. Definitely, absolutely, a lot of rockets being fired at Vivek Ramaswamy, who has been surging in polls recently. You saw Christie and Pence in particular attack him his inexperience, 38-year-old businessman with no government experience before. And then, again, to your point, it took a while for them to get to Trump. A lot of exchanges over everything from abortion to foreign policy.
So, Ali, for some of the candidates like Ramaswamy, this was really their first introduction to a national audience. Yeah. What did we see from those who were really trying to make a name for themselves, to try and stand out from the pack?
And what an introduction it was, because in many ways, he was the Trump stand-in there on the stage. A lot of the candidates more willing to mix it up with him, someone who's surging in the polls and who has no real political background, as opposed to someone like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who his campaign had really been previewing. Allies had said they knew he had a target on his back because of the fact that he has really been the second-place guy for the duration of this primary. What's clear is that most people on the stage preferred to ignore him and instead look at Ramaswamy for their moment or their standout opportunity. One of those was Chris Christie. Watch how that happened.
I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here.
Come over and give me a hug. Give me a hug just like you did to Obama.
The same type of amateur.
And you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama, too. Give me that
the same type of amateur.
There's that classic Christie flair that I think many of us expected to see, especially after watching him on the debate stage in 2016. But certainly Christie wasn't the only one who earned a moment at Ramaswamy's expense. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley really flexing her conservative credentials as well as her foreign policy creds, showing that she's someone who has not just been an executive of a state, but also someone who knows what it is to be a leader on the foreign policy and world stage. She, of course, was a UN ambassador in the Trump administration, and at one point really went at Ramaswamy as well as her other colleagues, stealing the moment and really elevating her stature on that stage as well.
So, John, bottom line, Trump still maintains a large lead in the polls over his rivals. That's one of the reasons he gave for not appearing at last night's debate, why we may not see him in future ones. But with this first debate behind us now, what can we expect from the candidates before they do this again next month in California? Does anyone have to change their strategy here?
I think what was most fast last night was the lack of fire at Ron DeSantis, polling number 2. This is a real problem at some level for his campaign, that nobody bothered to fight with him. That he's been swooning some, and the focus was really on Ramaswamy in terms of the other candidates trying to get to their spot. So I think basically we're going to see over the course of the next several weeks, as we wait for debate number 2, is this Donnybrook, this all-out brawl for who can be the number 2 candidate. And again, always worth mentioning that Donald Trump is dominant in the polls right now. That seems unlikely to change soon.
All right, Ali Vitali, John Allen, thank you both for kicking us off this hour.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.